Hello students, when we start class 11 physics, you must understand what is the first step to start physics. Now before getting into physics, we must understand that the language of physics is essentially mathematics. The algebra and the other portions that you have learnt in class 10 will be lesser used. In fact, the mathematics that we will be using in class 11th and 12th is basically calculus based. And in order to understand a calculus based physics, you must have great understanding of the subject itself. Now when you begin in class 11th, every student finds a difficulty because differentiation, which is a part of calculus, will be learned at the end of class 11th in mathematics. And similarly, in class 12, you will start learning integration. But the problem in physics is the moment you move to the second chapter, motion in straight line, we will be using differentiation as well as integration. So it is very important to understand why we use calculus in physics. Now let us have a brief discussion of why we use calculus in physics. For example, when you were in class 9, you have studied equation of motion like V equal to U plus AT, S equal to UT plus half AT square, and V square minus U square equal to 2AS. You must be very familiar that these equations are called equations of uniform motion. Equations of uniform motion. But what happens if the motion is non-uniform? In our real life, the motion is always non-uniform. In fact, you rarely find the motion to be uniform. For example, when you start from your home and going to a particular place in a scooter, on that time, the basic thing will happen is your scooter will not travel with a constant velocity of say 40 km per hour. In a traffic congestion, the velocity may become 0 or it may run very slowly like 20 km per hour. And in open space or when there is lesser traffic, the vehicle may move with 60 km per hour. This means the motion that we encounter in our day-to-day life is not exactly uniform, but it is non-uniform motion. Now, if I ask you what is the velocity of a particle at 0.0001 second, it is very difficult to answer. Even if you draw a graph of velocity time in which we have divided seconds like 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds, and if I ask you what is the value or what is the velocity of a car at say 1.0002 second, then it will become very difficult, in fact impossible to draw a particular graph, because suppose you are dividing 1 second into 1000 or 10,000 parts. So is it really possible to find these kind of values? Yes, it is possible with the help of calculus. We use differentiation and we use the idea of limit. So what exactly is a limit? Limit means an approaching value. For example, if I write down limit delta t tends to 0, this simply means time is very close to 0 but not equal to 0. With this type of idea, we can use to find out the value of velocity at a given point of time, whatever smaller the value could be. In fact, when we talk about forces in our surrounding, the forces may not be constant. For example, you are applying force on this wall. Suppose you have a wall here and you are applying force. It is impossible for any person to apply a constant force, say 100 Newton for 1 hour, because you will get tired. So once you get tired, the force is decreasing with time. The magnitude of force is decreasing with time. So in our real world, most of the things or many things that we encounter is non-uniform. Sometimes it is possible that you will consider things to be uniform and then operate with a set of mathematics. But at the same time, as I said, many things that you will see in your surrounding is basically non-uniform. So to understand non-uniform motion, to understand non-uniformity in the physical world, we use calculus. Now calculus has two parts, differentiation and integration. Differentiation basically means variation of one physical quantity with respect to other physical quantity. For example, how velocity is changing with time, how your height is changing with your age. You are a dependent functions because you are depending upon your father. Now it is very important to understand that in our physical world we can have functions. In fact, force can be a function, velocity can be a function, acceleration can be a function of time. Similarly, the value of small g can also be a function of height, because we know as we move away from the surface of the earth, the value of small g, which is acceleration due to gravity, changes with height. So in order to understand these things, we are using differentiation. How a particular value changes with another physical quantity. So the physical quantity which is depending upon the other physical quantity is dependent variable, and anything which is independent, which does not depend upon other physical quantity, is called independent variable. For example, in this particular graph of velocity and time is an independent variable, whereas velocity is a dependent variable. So in these cases we can use differentiation. Now differentiation is an idea which helps us to find out changes of one physical quantity with respect to other physical quantity. For example, again, displacement, say displacement is a function of time. So this means displacement depends upon time. And when we talk about integration, so integration, as the name indicates, it is a summation, it is a method of addition, but it is in fact, in our physical world, sometimes it becomes impossible to add certain values. So on that time, we have to take integration to sum up things. Now integration is actually applicable where again there is some kind of non-uniformity. For example, if you see this particular graph, this graph is basically non-uniform. So how will you find out area of a non-uniform system? You do not have any formula. So we can divide this particular curve into smaller parts, smaller elements, and ensuring that the elements are so small that we can neglect the small triangles that get formed in this particular curve. They are so small that we can neglect the triangles that are formed on this curve. And in that case, this will be approximately a rectangle. So considering the limit from 0 to a particular value, say 5, we can integrate and find out what is the area under this curve. Integration also has many other applications. For example, in chapters like rotation, we will find out moment of inertia of a given geometrical body like a rod, sphere, ring, etc. with the help of calculus or integration. So differentiation and integration has tremendous application in physics. So without understanding how it interacts with physics, in fact, the world of physics is deeply associated with mathematics. So unless you have great understanding or greater understanding of mathematics with physics, you will never be able to enjoy physics. That is why even NCERT states the basic understanding of basic calculus and vectors are very, very important. So unless you have a grip on these mathematical areas, physics learning cannot be enjoyable. So that's why it is very important that you have stronger grip and ensure that you take a course on basic calculus early in class 10. And even when you are moving to class 11, you request your teachers to ensure that they provide you a course on calculus, which could be short course but enough to understand physics. So in this course, we try to understand not only what exactly is the formula of differentiation or formula of integration, but how mathematics is deeply connected with physics. In fact, in class 11, the mindset of the student must be, whenever you think about any physical quantity in the world of physics or the world surrounding us, you must think with the brain of mathematics or the idea of mathematics. So once you see things in the language of mathematics, physics will become easier and you will be able to crack exams like IIT JEE Mains, Advanced, NEET or any other examination, and you will be able to enjoy physics rather than taking it as a burden. Subscribe to this particular channel, Emerald Guidance Educational. Very soon we will be releasing the basic course in mathematical physics. Subscribe to this channel so that you can understand in-depth analysis of NCERT physics and other subjects as well, which will be very useful for clearing JEE Mains, JEE Advanced and NEET aspirants. I am Biplab Das Gupta, founder and senior faculty of physics, Emerald Guidance, Ashok Nagar, West Bengal. Thank you.